Hi gang, new segment on the Joy of Football podcast today, 1/3 of a marathon, because believe it or not, we are 1/3 of the way through the season.
And we pay our respects to a legend who's recently left us.
Letter from the Gantry takes Martin through several games and several rather bizarre incidents.
And we've got three of the best with players from different countries, but they've all played in the Premier League, so watch out for that.
And feedback revisits from you, your thoughts on who is the best player for. You have to watch to find out. Don't forget, if you want to get closer to us, you can go on the Patreon. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us and make comments at the bottom. And don't forget that you can read us on substack.com and listen, watch. I'm not going to say that. The Joy of Football podcast. With me, Neil Barnett.
And with me, Martin Tyler.
Looks like Xavi! Ready! Aguero!
The Joy of Football. Hello, the Joy of Football podcast with Martin Tyler, the greatest commentator in the world, and me, Neil Barnett, brings you a podcast that, Martin, is a third of the way through the season. 13 league games played. The big European clubs have played around 20 matches, a third of the season. But actually, it's the season that never stops. It's last season, because you spent the summer in Philadelphia commentating on the Club World Cup. Yeah. And I spent the summer glued to my telly watching the Club World Cup.
If you remember, I think Manchester City wanted the Club World Cup to be included in this season.
Yeah.
But everybody knew it would be included in last season. Doesn't seem that long ago, and plans are being made now for broadcasters to go back to the States and get ready for what's going to happen in June and July. But I think we've got to a really interesting point in the season where I think it's fair to evaluate teams now and evaluate styles and all the things that we discuss, which we would be doing down the pub with me drinking the water, of course, if we weren't sitting here in front of a camera, in front of microphones.
Yeah. And I'll be on the bitter pale ale. Good old-fashioned...
That's the drink, not the opinions, is it?
Both. We start with 1/3 of a marathon. And the reason I've called it 1/3 of a marathon is that already, we haven't had, as we talk, any games in December yet. Already, people are asking managers if they're favourites to win the league, if they're going to be...
They were doing that after one game.
Competition for the league, competing for the league. Yeah. And the fact is, if you sort of got your running shoes on and got next to a marathon runner a third of the way through the race and said, are you going to be in the battle for the end of it? He'd turn around or she'd turn around and say, don't be stupid. I'm just trying to keep up for now. And that's all it is.
But there would be no pub topics if we didn't have these, if you wipe these things off the agenda.
Yeah, but we want sensible ones, not stupid.
Yeah, sensible ones, and also ones that understand that what can happen in the first third of the season might be down to a suspension, an injury to a key player, or the other way, a couple of remarkable results in favour of the team that maybe gives them a slightly inflated position. But I do think it's now, I mean, just looking at the league table, you do get a bit surprised. It changes so much. What's the points difference now? On 18, we've got Everton, who are 14th, and on 22, we've got Brighton, who are 5th, as we speak. So... You know, that's the love of it. I mean, you can argue about the quality, and we probably will, but the competitive nature, the desire, I think that's what always has sold English football to the world, you know. I did these round-the-world commentaries back in the 1980s where there was no live football, give or take one or two deals that were done. But every Saturday afternoon, there was a 3:00 game being beamed around the world from the old First Division. And the countries lapped up the action because from first whistle to last, it was full on. And it still is. And at times, we keep coming back to the long throw as some sort of barometer of sophistication or lack of it. Liverpool scored from a long throw, West Ham.
And
So surely
I've watched Declan Rice hurling the ball for Arsenal game. But let's take it into simple topics. Okay. What's the best game you've seen this season so far?
Well, it was early-ish, and I think that had something to do with it because Brentford had just appointed Keith Andrews to take over from Thomas Frank. And Keith was very kind. He spent a time with me a day before the game and gave up some of his time to show me around the training ground, talk about his team, how he was going to play and everything. It was really, really helpful, very, very grateful. And Chelsea, of course, are always a talking point, not just because you're here, but they are always a talking point because of their business plan and the players coming in and out, who's going to be in the team. And they were off the back. I mean, to be able to say that a team's running out in a Premier League game, you've got the club world champions. Whatever people think about the tournament, Chelsea are the club world champions.
And have a hideous great circle on their chest in order to prove
if you can't stick your chest out without by doing something like that.
But it is hideous.
And
FIFA.
Yeah, so and they were into the Champions League, and basically I thought it was a really interesting London derby.
It was
after the London derby.
It was after the first international break.
It was, yeah, and it was really exciting, the game, and it had, as now I've been calling it the League of Late Goals for such a long time. It's a bit of a commentary tool, really, because you're smart if the late goals come along, and they usually do, and this did. And it was from a long throw, and it had a VAR question about it, so it added double sense of drama. And it finished 2-2. Caicedo scored a cracker of a goal for Chelsea. And
Cole Palmer came off the bench at 1-0 down and turned the game.
Yeah, it looked
coming back from injury and turned the game round to 2-1.
Well, there's someone we haven't seen very much of since either. But that was my game.
And if I had to pick a man of the match in that game, it would be the 136-year-old or whatever he is, Jordan Henderson, who had an outstanding. It was the first time I'd seen Igor Thiago in the flesh, and he's a player.
He played a wonderful ball, Jordan Henderson, didn't he, for the first goal?
By Sharda. He was a good player.
Yeah, he's come out of the shadows.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, apologies all round.
Well, it's interesting that you picked that game.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm picking two Chelsea games, and they're the last two, because the 3-0 win over Barcelona and the 1-1 draw with Arsenal. Neither Barcelona nor Arsenal would agree that they were good games. But my point is, they were both blood and thunder games. They were both the kind of games that you're talking about back in the 1980s that wowed the world with the top flight in England. And one of the problems of the last few years has been teams trying to copy Pep Guardiola and Manchester City have walked the ball. It's like oh God, I'm going to take, this is so old. I'm going to take everyone back to a live album at the beginning of the 1970s of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
What a back four they were.
They were indeed. And it was Neil Young introduced the song by saying, this kind of starts slowly and stops somewhere in the middle, which is basically like all Neil Young songs probably. But that is how Premier League football has too often been in recent times. It starts slowly and stops somewhere in the middle. And these last two games that I've seen have been blood, thunder and guts. And that's Barcelona as well. And of course, Paris Saint-Germain introduced this high pressing, not as a kind of part of the game. They just did it all game, and they turned front foot. They turned high pressing into the best front foot football that you could possibly imagine last season. And Barcelona did the same thing. And so I do think the era of people with fingers up their noses and in their ears while they consider the sway of the wind and the culture of the match is leaving, and we're getting back to some good blood.
I think the mix now would be great. Adam Wharton I saw play against Manchester United. Obviously, most people have seen a bit of him now. He plays forward all the time. And sometimes it's a swinging, because they know the shape so well. So it is without looking. He expects a player to be there. And I must say that is so refreshing. We don't get the stats on that. Maybe we do, but I don't see them. Who plays the highest percentage of forward passes of midfield players in the Premier League?
Yeah, instead you get the person who plays the most passes.
Yeah.
And it's a centre-back.
To the other centre-back.
Yeah. And it drives me up the wall. The wall. But, yeah.
But it's so conspicuous with Adam Wharton. And he's got such a range. It doesn't have to be a long pass, but he will play a long pass. He'll slide it in, and Mateta must love it because he's on a radar with him. It's
and don't you find when it is like that, the crowd gets behind the team much more, and you get that atmosphere that so many people complain isn't there as much anymore?
Yeah, that's quite. I mean, I respect your view because you've been a pitch announcer at a big club, and now you can compare what you did then with what you're seeing now as going to the same ground as a prawn sandwich person now, I suppose you are. But I haven't really felt that quite as much as you. The one thing I do think that keeping the public address system right up to the kickoff doesn't make it easy for the crowd to really get into full voice.
But the football is more crowd arousing.
Yeah, and the long throws. You talked about going to Lincoln and the long throw. There it is. I mean, but again, it's like everything. An action has a reaction, and then now they're saying that it takes too long to set up the long throw, and the game is losing time. And there are things to be looked at in the game that are more important than that, like the Donnarumma accusations about faking injury. Now, I don't know whether he faked the injury or not, and I'm certainly not sitting here saying that he did. But goalkeepers do, and that's
it's interesting. On Match of the Day, Danny Murphy went with your view that an outfield player should have to go off for 30 seconds. My view remains that we've got to stop managers and players having discussions during the game.
Well, Kalina, the head of referees, has come out in the last few days and said it should be a 2-minute absence for an outfield player when he's injured. That he should have to go off for 2 minutes. And that there's still exemption for the goalkeepers, but it's the goalkeepers that are the problem. And 2 minutes, you will end up like sin bins where, he's off for 2 minutes. So we'll play defensively for 2 minutes because we're down to 10.
That's a referee being anti-football and pro officials again. Well, Kalina should know better.
I was disappointed because his judgments and previous pronouncements have been spot on. But the goalkeeper cannot be protected anymore because it's not the goalkeepers themselves their fault. They're told to do it. And the coaches not only get that to break up the momentum of the opposition, but they get to talk to their players.
I want to bring up a couple of subjects on this first third of the season, and one is the dearth. We talked so much about the dearth of strikers, centre forwards more than strikers, but the dearth of centre backs. And I look at Thomas Tuchel in England, and I wonder if he's going to find a centre-back pairing that is going to be strong enough to really make England competitive in the World Cup. In a way, that's a really...
You're certainly a dearth of English centre-backs.
Well, that's a silly point in a way that I'm making because England got to extra time in the final of the Euros and only just lost with Concert and Gahey as the centre backs, and they do ever so well. But do I really think that they're a pair to win England the World Cup? I'd have my doubts. And English centre backs, but I look beyond Gabriel and Saliba, and I don't see another pair. I mean, the Chelsea pair of the last few games, Fofana and Chalobah, I think are the second best pair in the country now, and keeping clean sheet after clean sheet.
But I disagree with you, Neil, because like Forrest, Milenkovic and Murillo, I think they're very good. Brighton, Lewis Dunk was actually out of the team for a game. I don't know what that reason was. He came on at half time. And Jan-Paul van Hecker, they are proper old-fashioned headache kicking players. Although Lewis Dunk told me, I must correct myself here, because Lewis Dunk told me he loves playing from the back. Yeah, he's built like an old-fashioned centre-back.
He is a good footballer.
He can play. He's a really good footballer. So I do think they're there. We had the discussion, as we always do before the podcast. I think the teams that know they're going to score a lot of goals take more of a chance with footballing centre-backs who are therefore more vulnerable defensively, but fit in with the general scheme of things. And if a goal or two is let in, although it doesn't obviously apply to a team like Arsenal, and you've said they've got the best centre-back, but I think some of the European teams are quite happy to win games 5-2 or something like that. So the two going in doesn't cause the effect like it would do in the Premier League.
I look at Real Madrid, I look at Barcelona, I look at Paris Saint-Germain, and I don't see quality centre-backs at all. Bayern Munich, I don't see quality centre-backs at all. And you know, when you go back and look at the Champions League winners, when you look at that Real Madrid team that won it year in, year out with Varane and Sergio Ramos, when you look at Barcelona winning it so often with Piqué and Puyol.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about people who could play, but who knew how to defend and who were top of the tree. And I don't see that now, and I don't see it in the Premier League in many teams. I agree with you about Nottingham Forest, although obviously they're struggling this year. But
Mike Thiaw's just come to Newcastle. He looks the real deal. He's not an English qualified player, but you would imagine, Dan Burn's going to be in the mix for going to the World Cup late in his career. Wonderful opportunity, a really terrific character who's made himself into a top class player. So I think
Chalobah will get there ahead of him.
And Colwell, is he going to be fit in time?
Cruciate ligament, he'll be playing, but will he be fit? For that level.
And of course, listen, the Tottenham's strength, and they've not had a great season, is obviously Romero and Van der Ven.
But Romero's injured so much.
Yeah, and Van der Ven's hamstrings are under scrutiny from the Spurs fans every minute he plays, really. But what a player, by the way, what a player
when
he
you
is.
look back at World Cups, I mean, it's unfathomable to understand how Argentina won the World Cup with Romero and Otamendi as their centre backs. I mean, Romero's good, but he's not great.
Yeah, but they've got Messi and plenty of others, and they score plenty of goals. And France the same. I mean, France, they win the World Cup 4-2 when World Cups are normally 1-0 or tight penalty shootouts or anything like that. And they get 3 in the final 4 years later. So I just think it's the balance of the teams that need to defend. And some coaches, I mean, I've talked a lot, and I obviously was privileged to know him reasonably well, about Brian Clough. His team started with the goalkeeper, which I know is a strong point for you, and the defensive unit. And then from there, it builds going forward. And the defending side of Forest teams back in the day was an outstanding part of it.
You played non-league centre forward.
I did.
What was the kind of centre back you most loathed playing against?
Well, the ones probably that could beat me in the air, really, because I was quite good in the air. The best centre-back I played against, the best player I ever played against was John Lacey, who I played against twice. And then he went to Fulham, got in the cup final team, and played alongside Bobby Moore. It's pretty good pedigree. And then he went to Spurs and played, and that had another move after that. So, but John's very tall. He's sort of a bit more of a gangly sort of centre-half, but he was far too good for me. He was good on the ground as well. So only the ones that could beat me in the air, because I was quite good in the air. That's about the only quality I had. So I was never going in a foot race with the quick ones. So it was, I mean, when I look back, and I told John this when we met for the 50th anniversary, the reunion, Neil, at the Fulham 50th Cup final anniversary last May. And I said, if it hadn't been for you, maybe I'd have been playing in professional football, because you put me in my place, and I knew then that was the colour. He went to Fulham pretty soon after dismantling me. So
the other thing I want to bring up in this World Cup year is the dearth of Brazilian centre forwards. They've played an awful lot of games as usual, Brazil, over the last year. And just going back, they just recently played Tunisia and Senegal with 2 up in both games, Cunha and Vinicius. They drew 1-1 with Tunisia and beat Senegal 2-0. They lost 3-2 to Japan with just Vinicius at centre forward. I mean, he's not a centre forward. They beat South Korea 5-0 with just Cunha as the centre forward.
He's not a centre forward,
no,
really.
No, they lost 1-0 to Bolivia.
No.
They lost 1-0 to Bolivia with Richarlison up front. They beat Chile 3-0 with João Pedro up front. They beat
He's not a centre forward either.
No, definitely not. They beat Paraguay 1-0 with Vinicius up front. Ecuador, they drew 0-0 with Richarlison up front. They lost 4-1 to Argentina with Vinicius up front. And they beat Colombia 2-1, playing 4-4-2 with João Pedro and Vinicius up front. And you've seen up front.
Well, I've seen Igor Jesus, who plays for Nottingham Forest. I saw him play for Botafogo. And he's got 5 caps, I think. He scored a goal for Brazil. But he doesn't seem to be mentioned too much in dispatches. I mean, I go back to Pele, and although you probably put him in a different role, he wasn't the big centre forward. No, say Ronaldo, who also wasn't particularly big, but won the 2002 World Cup for Brazil on one leg, which was quite a feat. So, and
got himself a transfer to Real Madrid as a result. Yeah.
And one or two others have had a go. And of course, we talked about Igor Thiago. As a Brentford, who we both like, don't we?
I mean, could Brazil go to the World Cup with a Brentford centre forward?
Oh, that would mess my notes up because I have BR for Brazil and BR for Brentford. I won't know what's going. Of course they could. Yeah, I mean he's doing extremely well.
He's good, isn't he?
I don't think. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti's not going to be fazed by. He knows English football. He knows what Brentford have been doing. So he won't be fazed by that, and he came from Jesus. Igor Jesus came from Botafogo. They played. They had a real tie-up with Forest, didn't they? I think 3 players went, so they've got a chance. There's Vitor Roque is an interesting one. He's played a couple of games, maybe because you've looked at them, maybe not as a central striker, but. He came to Barcelona, and when I can remember doing a Barcelona game where he was like, "Watch out for this kid," and now
he failed.
He's gone back to Brazil for a big fee, especially for Brazil buying a player back, and maybe he's been in recent squads. He's got a couple of caps, so yeah, it's interesting. It certainly, I don't know. When you think about World Cups and teams go into it with a lineup, Argentina being a classic, but the Argentina game for the first game in the World Cup was nothing like the game that won the final. Mm-hmm. England went in, they just scraped together the team. Players like, Jeff Hurst only got in because Jimmy Greaves was injured. And he virtually played his way out of the team in a poor tour leading up to the World Cup. Martin Peters, I don't think, had been capped until that year. Michael Owen got into the England World Cup squad just 6 months after his first cap. So there's a lot of wriggle room for the coaches. And my goodness, how many Brazilians are there playing top-level football around the world, But Carlo will be sipping his cappuccino and deciding what the best option is. I think Vinicius will have to. I know you don't like Mbappe playing centre forward, but it's very tempting as a coach to stick your quickest player up front because you've got one ball and you're out. You can catch him in any sort of game. You can catch somebody out. Like if you're one ball down the left wing for Vinicius, you've still got to beat a couple of people if he's going to do an individual thing. So it's great. That's why we love talking about it.
Listen, you're assuming that Carlo's doing it in the morning if he's sipping cappuccino. It'd be red wine at any other time.
Well, you know him more in the night time. I know him more around the lunchtime press conferences where cappuccini are very, very much on offer for the assembled gathering.
That is 1/3 of a marathon. We move on, and we have a very sad second segment, Farewell Legend, which we've just used occasionally. The death of 79-year-old Billy Bonds, who you and I have watched for decades.
Yes, and I've actually one of the few people I think he actually stopped to do an interview with. He hated doing interviews, only because I was put in a position where he had to do the interview, I can hasten to add. Bonzo, just like it was, that's the name. So it just sums him up, straightforward. Loved the game, loved playing the game. Didn't stand any nonsense from people who didn't put as much into it as he did. Super fit. So unlucky not to play for England. I read one of the tributes that he'd been told he would have played because Ron Greenwood, his club manager, got the England job at a good time, and that he was injured and couldn't play in the game. And he's going to play with Alvin Martin, the two centre backs. Alvin Martin, of course, went to a World Cup and had a reasonable England career. So, but he looked indestructible as a player and really indestructible as a man as well. My best memory of him, well, there are two memories. One, you couldn't get him for an interview. At West Ham, at Upton Park, we were the commentators had to do the interviews as well. It wasn't live television then. So you had to get down the ladder and across. By the time you got halfway across the pitch, even if you were allowed to go across the pitch, you probably had to go around behind the goal. Billy was in his car, driving out the car park. He lived in Kent. So if you know your London geography, the West Ham near the Blackwall Tunnel, but it gets choked up with traffic after the games. So Bill was out before the fans were out virtually. He must have had the briefest of showers. And if you saw him, it would be his back view getting into the car or heading for the car park. And he never stopped. And that was his lifestyle. He lived there, and I think maybe all his life. And he didn't want to be none of the trappings, and it wasn't quite the trappings of today. No. Remember, it was a bit more muck and nettles in those days. But he played at Anfield when he was 40, and West Ham, who were very much underdogs in the game against a very good Liverpool side, they got a 0-0, and he was honestly, for a 40-year-old, he's extraordinary. But even by his own great standard, he gave a magnificent performance. And we trapped him really because he couldn't. The bus wasn't going to leave. The other players, and he did an interview, very humble and a lot of pride glowing, but not in his words. He was very self-effacing as a bloke. It's really sad. I just thought he'd live forever because he's just the fittest man that I've ever
and he of course went into coaching and he managed them for 4 years.
Yes.
Do you think there's anybody now who will play anywhere near 799 games for their club and then manage them? I mean, in his era, Tony Book did. Tony Book was a late arrival at Manchester City.
He was a bricklayer.
But he was a legend of that same ilk, though he hadn't played as much, but he won so much.
I bumped into him the other day, James Milner, who will manage, I'm sure. I don't know.
But he's not been with one club.
No, but he's been in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I think that counts in today where people don't really stay at one club like they used to. And of course, Billy didn't start at West Ham. No, he was at Charlton. So that's the Kent base. And so I don't know what his excuse was leaving early there. But the Blackwall Tunnel was, Bill, he's got to get through the Blackwall Tunnel. Sorry, he was man of the match, no chance. He's gone, mate. He's gone. That's those sorts of conversations.
I mean, funny enough, West Ham have someone who might fall into that category yet. Mark Noble, who spent his entire career at West Ham.
Managing the club as well.
If he could manage the club as well,
I don't know. We've had it. Kenny Dalglish would come into that category. People who've really been very devoted to their club and seen us. It's often a way to go, but somebody who's played that many games in that kind of way, I think Bonzo's unique. Very sad. Very sad.
Yeah, Billy Bonds, lovely, brilliant for West Ham. Brilliant.
Actually, I was in the company of Jamie Carragher today, we might mention why I was there, but you
were doing a podcast.
I was part of the Overlap Empire fan debate, I think it's called, and he said in the course of the chat, he said things come up on your phone when these tragic events happen, the sad events, and it came up the 1980 FA Cup post-match interview because of course West Ham in the second division beat Arsenal, who were the holders of the FA Cup, 1-0, Trevor Brooking, and Paul Allen. Do you remember the Paul Allen incident we talked about, Willie Young, that changed the law of the game? That was that final. And Billy, as captain, had to do the interview, and I was doing the interview. So I remember those post-match interviews, they were crazy, really. Everybody wanted to go off and drink champagne who won, and everybody who lost didn't want to come anywhere near a microphone. So but Billy would have to, as the 75 Cup final, he was also captain against Fulham. a winning captain. And John Lyall had to persuade him that he's got to do the interviews because he hadn't been captain very long. So he wasn't shy, he just didn't see it as part of his remit. And yet he ended up working in the radio and as did Bobby Moore, of course. They ended up working for a radio station in London and imparted wisdom like that. So.
Mark Hughes, after Chelsea won the Cup in 1997, and he'd won the FA Cup for Manchester United maybe 3 times. I think 4 was a record at the time for one player, or maybe it was his 5th.
Ashley's got the record down.
I think it was his 5th actually, because he won it in the 80s, didn't he? 89, 85, 90, 94. Maybe it was his 4th time. Yeah. He sat in the dressing room afterwards, not sipping champagne. He had a pint of bitter.
Well, you know, they had to drink milk in front of the interviews.
Because it
was sponsoring it. And that's probably, I mean, I guess some of them would have grown up drinking milk, but a lot of them were looking at it as if it wasn't their favourite post-match celebratory drink. But had to hold them. We had to get the milk bottles in shop to play our part as well.
Steven Gerrard, if he got the Liverpool job.
Yes, yeah, that's.
But he's managed elsewhere first. Billy Bonds didn't.
No,
Billy Bonds just managed.
He managed Millwall in the end, though, didn't he? I mean, that's really contrary to.
I know, yeah.
So you tell you how brave he was to be a West Ham legend and manage Millwall, you know.
Yeah, great man. Right, we move on to. No, before we move on, just to remind you, Substack. You can read Martin's letter from the gantry on there, and that's what's coming up next. And if you like the podcast, you can subscribe. If you don't like it, you can comment. We can comment if you like it as well. And we're having feedback today, so there'll be something to say that might get aired. And of course, you can go on our Patreon to get closer to the podcast. This is Martin Tyler's Letter from the Gantry.
Letter from the Gantry.
Thank you, Neil, as always. It has been a week when even experienced observers like myself have come up with that time-honoured phrase, "I've never seen anything like that before." It started shortly hard on the heels of the recording of last week's podcast. I've been invited by the Premier League to do an in-house commentary on Manchester United against Everton, television's equivalent of a behind-closed-doors event. It was essentially a chance for an ex-player to have a tryout on the role of co-commentator, with only the potential employer listening. 14 minutes into the action from Old Trafford came an incident the like of which had never happened in the match when I've been commentating. It stunned an experienced broadcaster, while my aspiring colleague was just 14 minutes into his hopeful career. I think his startled look was more about the incident than having to find the words to explain it. You will have guessed that I'm referring to Idrissa Gueye's fallout with his teammate Michael Keane, which led to a red card for the former for slapping the latter in the face. I recalled the on-field bust-ups of Graham Nassau and David Batty in a Blackburn game, and Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer with Newcastle, forgetting Andy Griffin and Ricardo Fuller when with Stoke City back in 2008. It was eyebrow-raising, to say the least, for both of us. 2 days later, I was on duty for Liverpool's Champions League game against PSV from the Netherlands, the setting for another strange incident, again early in the game. I had to wait for the replays to believe that Virgil van Dijk, a defender of impeccable standards, had brought into his own penalty area a movement normally seen in volleyball, arm raised high and with it whacking the ball away. The Liverpool skipper complained that he'd been shoved onto the ball, but there was no real evidence of that, and VAR didn't come to his rescue, nor did the rest of his team. The Dutch delight was in the other camp, and the away dressing room at Anfield. Everything they say comes in threes, and the third never-before moment came at Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace against Manchester United. Jean-Philippe Mateta was tripped by Lenny Yoro, a clear penalty for the Eagles. When Mateta took it and scored, his contact with the ball looked untidy, as if he'd kicked the ball into the ground. It rather trundled into the net, but United keeper Sene Lomans had dived the wrong way, and Mateta wheeled away in triumph and performed his kung fu kick on the corner flag trademark celebration. On the gantry, we don't hear what the referee, Rob Jones in this case, was saying, but we can listen to the Stockley Park end of the conversation. Despite the Palace fans celebrating noisily, I clearly heard the voice of VAR on that game, Matt Donoghue, advising on a retake of the penalty. Forensic analysis had detected correctly that Mateta had played the ball twice. The lack of pace on the penalty was in fact because the ball deflected off his other foot. Now, until last year, the double touch would have simply nullified the kick, like a save or a miss of the target. Last summer, FIFA changed the law on the back of a double touch and a penalty by Julian Alvarez playing for Atletico Madrid against Real Madrid in the Champions League, no less. It went down as a miss, but it prompted the change. IFAB, the organisation which rules on regulations, decided a retake was fairer, but only on accidental double touches. If your penalty hits the post and bounces back to you, you're not suddenly allowed to play it a second time. Mateta was the first player I've witnessed benefiting from the new regulation. The France international, first capped earlier this season at the age of 28, didn't pass up his second opportunity. He won the battle of wits with the keeper changing sides and still wrong-footing Lamens. And the corner flag was kung fu kicked for a second time. Just a final note on the backstory of players. United turned the game around in the second half. Goals from Joshua Zirkzee, his first in the Premier League for a year, and from Mason Mount, the 50th of his club career, but no longer as frequent a scorer as in his time with Chelsea. Neither man has had the best of fortune in their time at Old Trafford. It was impossible not to sense their special joy. On the other hand, everyone who has a heart must have felt the pain of striker Thierry Barry. The young French forward has taken part in every game this season for Everton since his move from Villarreal. He joyously hailed what he thought was his first goal against Newcastle, only for the technology to turn a beaming smile and a great sense of relief into near tears. In setting up the shot, the ball had struck his arm. No goal. Hopefully, by the time you listen to this letter, his luck will have changed.
I'm intrigued. I didn't see the Liverpool PSV Eindhoven game, and PSV Eindhoven won the league, didn't they, last season?
Yeah, and they're really streaking
as we talk,
season.
14 games down in the Netherlands. They've got 37 points, Feyenoord is second with 31. And the interesting thing about Eindhoven, winning 4-1 at Liverpool, in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, they've drawn one, lost one, and won 5 at home, but they've won all 7 away. Who are they, PSV Eindhoven? Are they any good?
Well, they score stacks of goals. I mean, in the vast majority of their games this season, domestically and in Europe, they have scored 2 or more. So when they get you, they really do get you. And I think, even PSV, and they've been champions of Europe. I mean, they've won another European
Have they
trophy
got a
as well.
player that I'd know?
Well, he's going to come up later in our 3 of the best. So I'll say, but yeah, they've got Sharp. They've got a forward-thinking manager, Peter Bosz, who was I commentated on him playing for the Netherlands a few years ago. And Arne Slot has always been an opponent, even in the Netherlands, as a player and as a coach, because he was at Feyenoord, against PSV. So in a way, it was sort of old memories coming back to haunt him again.
Peter Bosz did the rounds of the Bundesliga. I think he was Borussia Dortmund for a while, manager, wasn't he?
I remember him mostly as a player, but I mean, I think he was sort of, you get a lot of cutaways, as we call it in television, shots of the bench and the managers, and sometimes their expression never changes, and you're really struggling to say anything meaningful about it. But his moods change a lot. Clearly, Liverpool equalised. Szoboszlai, by the way, he's the man of the moment for consistently playing in a difficult time for the club. He was tremendous. He equalised, and everybody, that was 16 minutes in, it was 1-1. And everybody really felt, and I'm sure I said it in my commentary, that this is set up for Liverpool to really take it to them in the second half, attacking the Kop stand as well. So, but it all went the other way. Konate had a bad moment, and that was 2-1, and then they just played to their attacking instincts, and Liverpool not functioning really. So yeah, they're worth keeping an eye on. That's certainly in there. And it's a setback in the Champions League. I'm pretty sure Liverpool will finish in the top 4. But if they don't, they've got to really make a go at what they're capable of doing and have done in different decades. They can win the Champions League. So they've got that kind of experience. Yeah. They've certainly got the theatre, but it was the quietest Anfield at the end I can remember for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, Liverpool...
And they'd lost 3-0 at home the previous Saturday.
Yeah, you say you'd finish in the top 4. You probably only have to finish in the top 5.
Oh, well,
it's confirmed yet.
Yeah.
And they're only, I mean, as we speak, they've got 21 points and 5th place Brighton of 22. So.
Yeah, so they've had, I mean, it's odd that it was a near perfect start and then an awful, worst possible scenario, a kind of response to that in the second half of the games that we're talking about so far, until West Ham were probably the best place to go to try and sort themselves out. I did the game last year there, they won 5-0 on their way. And Luis Diaz, we've talked about him a couple of times. I think he's a big mess for them. Yeah.
I also think that they've shoehorned too many of their signings in to the team, and they should have just taken
It's great for
time.
Isak to get his first Premier League goal for the club. I'm sure that will herald better things to come. And Wirtz looked as though he was more on song, so they benefited from the fact that the team had to change really after what happened on the Wednesday.
3 of the best, and as I said, you can read them on Substack.
No, it's not 3 of the best. Neil.
No,
it's
it's
the
not.
Letter from the Gantry.
Letter from the Gantry. It's 3 of the best next.
Concentrate.
Keep that in to prove that we muck up, or I muck up. I should say.
No, I do it as well. You know that.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, 3 of the best.
And he makes them pay.
3 of the best. He's made them pay. And that completes a wonderful hat-trick.
Young player, old player, player. I've gone off on a wild one again this week. I might have a few. Young player.
Well, Lewis Miley has been in and out of the Newcastle setup. If he's not playing, he's invariably on the bench. He's probably been more on the bench than playing. But he started at Everton and he made a goal very early on, got the assist of the goal, and then scored a goal in that 4-1 win. And he's always been the one, if you like. We'll hear from all the clubs, they've got one in the youth setup, that would be the one. And like Max Dowman at Arsenal, we heard about him before he even broke in the first team, and Waneri before that. I mean, Lewis in the Northeast smacks of a television detective, and Kevin Whately, the actor, that's the only Lewis really I'd heard of coming from that part of the world. Although I think Kevin actually comes from Cumbria, which is more the northwest. But his characters in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, and in the Morse series and the Lewis series have been as if he's from Newcastle. So this is a Lewis from Newcastle who's going to make a real difference on the football field, I think. He's tall, he's got great balance. He plays the game with his head up.
Yeah, good eye.
Yeah, and I think he deserves a lower squad number. Maybe he's so wedded. I think it's 67, is it? His squad number.
Like that,
yeah. I think he'll find his way down into single figures before long. But he's my young player. He's had some great moments before, which just this one, because I was watching the game. I was watching the game live, prepping for my game the next day, and it was nice to see that he's been given the chance to start, and he took his chance well.
The Under-17s World Cup has just taken place, and England put in a team that was essentially Under-18s because you qualify, and then once you've qualified, you can go on playing for them. And sailed through the group stage and then got spanked in the round of 16 when they went down to 10 men, 4-0 by Austria. Austria got to the final and lost 1-0 to Portugal. But England's best...
Portugal amazing, aren't they? Just in passing.
But
the way
England,
they produce young players.
England's best player in the group stage, and I saw bits of it, was Reigan Heskey, son of...
One of the sons
of Emile, who are both at Manchester City. And he regularly plays for the development team, the under-21s at Manchester City. Reigan, by the way, spelled Reigan. So not a lifting of the cap to the former American actor / president. Reigan Heskey He's a winger. He's not a centre forward like his dad, but he's a strong running, talented, attacking player, and he gets lots of goals. And I think he's got a chance. What I've seen of him, I think he's got a chance. He's very, very standoutish at under 21s. Yeah, he's only about 18. Really, the problem with Emile Heskey as an outstanding technician at centre forward and strong presence was he didn't get enough goals. But the likes of Michael Owen and those kind of players absolutely adored playing with him.
Yeah, he was a great player for those around him,
Mm.
and he scored his share. To be fair, he was a very strong person and a very strong man, and I'm not surprised that the family have developed. And he's a good man as well, Emile.
Yeah. So Reigan, Heskey, one to look out for. Old player.
I was very taken because I was doing Crystal Palace at the weekend. Very taken with the team they played in Europe, Strasbourg, who are managed by an Englishman, Liam Rosenior, and he's had a good career as a player, and he's managed in England, Derby in particular. But first of all, to go overseas and take on a challenge, learning the language, communicating the language. I mean, he's got a bit of Frenchness about him. I think if we all lived in France, I'm looking at the production team, no, that wouldn't happen. We would get a French style. You'd have a beret, wouldn't you? You'd be perfect with a French beret.
And a string of onions.
But I was really impressed with the team. And yes, they are ex-Chelsea, present Chelsea and future Chelsea. And he made the point of saying, and it's a fair comment, that don't look at it as Chelsea B, and they try to play down the Chelsea connection, but it's obviously had the ownership, because the ground has been redeveloped. The ground's splendid now. It's a real proper football stadium with a great atmosphere. And so I wish him well. We regularly lament in our podcast that there aren't enough English coaches in the Premier League. That's no disrespect to the foreigners, but for English players coming through and finishing their careers and thinking, well, I'm not going to ever manage at the top level because it's not. We had Carlton Cole saying here that it wasn't a thing of ethnicity with him or of colour. It was to do with the fact that he's English, and he felt the prejudice was that, nothing else. And of course, you have to earn the job, and there's no question.
I think Liam Rosenior will get a big job in England at the end of this Strasbourg stretch. I think he's really proved himself.
And would that job be Chelsea?
Well, it depends if it's going. But if it is going, it would be an obvious one. But right now, I can't see.
No, Maresca's doing a fantastic job. But down the line,
I mean, his dad managed as well. Leroy, who was a very good centre forward for Fulham and West Ham, managed for quite a long time.
At the time where it was difficult to
get
a
black
job.
People to get jobs.
So he's a terrific guy. Leroy, he's still around on the circuit, and I wish Liam well. He's a charming young man. His team played really well. That's really the point I wanted to make. Crystal Palace missed some very, very easy chances, but they were sporadic, and there was the energy. All the starting lineup were 23 or under, I think, for Strasbourg. And then Ben Chilwell came on as the elder statesman just before half-time and was voted in some quarters the man of the match. And,
I think he won the UEFA man of the match.
Did he? And he's just steadied it, and he helped them get across the line. And it's good to see him doing it as well. Actually, I saw Mason Mount after the Crystal Palace game as a big mate of Ben Chilwell's. I said, you've done the double over Crystal Palace, you two. And of course, Ben Chilwell played for Palace last season on loan from Chelsea, didn't he? So, but they did very well. And although there were those outstanding opportunities for Palace were squandered, and Oliver Glasner was furious about it afterwards. We said we don't take the moments that can turn the match our way. But Strasbourg deserved to win, no question.
My old player is one that you had in the summer. And it's Danilo, the Brazilian fullback, for Flamengo.
Yeah.
And on Saturday evening, I was one of, I don't know anyone else who tuned in to BBC Three to watch the Copa Libertadores final between Palmeiras and Flamengo. Flamengo won 1-0. Danilo, who I don't think was going to start and only came in at the last moment because somebody else was injured, aged 34, headed the winner from a corner. Did he rise like a salmon and power his header home? No, he was totally unchallenged, and the game was the biggest load of crap I have ever seen in a final, certainly since Liverpool versus...
When you were Chelsea Man United in 2007.
It was. What a wonderful goal that was at the end of extra time after the most dreadful 117 minutes. But Liverpool-Tottenham, I think, was the worst Champions League final I can remember. But here at Copa Libertadores, it was awful. Neither side attacked. Both just waited for a mistake. And in the end, Flamengo won. But Danilo becomes one of those rare people who's won the Champions League, which he won twice with Real Madrid, and the Copa Libertadores. He also won the Premier League twice with Manchester City, Serie A with Juventus, and it looks as though, as we talk, that Flamengo will win the league in Brazil this year. So he's doing mighty fine. And Jorginho, late of my neck of the woods, Chelsea and Arsenal.
His first year playing in Brazil.
Yeah, and he won it. Yeah. So Jorginho has won the Champions League, the Euros, and Copa Libertadores, but he's never won a league. And of course, the winning manager was Felipe Luis, another person you've had.
I spent some time with him. He was very helpful to me in Philadelphia, and as was Danilo. And if you remember, I asked, because he played in England and they were playing English club, I said, have you given advice to your teammates about how to play against an English team? And he said, yeah, run. And I thought that was funny. He was a charming guy to talk to. I'm delighted. I didn't see the game, but I'm delighted for him.
Felipe Luis is the 9th person to win the Copa Libertadores as a player and as a manager. And he's still only about his 3rd year of management. He is absolutely ripping it up. And of course, he won the league certainly once. I can't remember if he was there the second time when Atletico Madrid won it, but he played in 2 Champions League finals.
He didn't win it in his season with Chelsea.
He won. He won the Premier League. It just been
just like
played.
That. I thought you might mention that a bit earlier.
And the League Cup,
to be honest.
but smashing bloke.
It was. Football's full of them.
Burst into tears when they won, and there was a lot of talking up the Palmeiras manager, Abel Herrera. Who has been a really long-serving manager of Palmeiras, 6-7 years. But he's Portuguese. He's not Brazilian.
He's Portuguese, and I think I might have told you this probably off camera and off microphone. When Palmeiras came to play in Philadelphia, Estêvão was still a Palmeiras player and played against Chelsea. But the talk was from the Brazilian press, who don't mince their words, was that he's only thinking about playing for Chelsea and not for Palmeiras. And Abel started the press conference. He said, I'm going to talk to you all first, and he did it in English, that Estêvão is fully committed to this club. He stuck up for his boy fantastically. And he played, and he played well in the game. And that was their game against Botafogo, and they won 1-0 and they got through. So he made a big impression on me with that. Yeah. So I'm not surprised.
There's a lot of talk that he's going to get a big job in Europe.
Oh yeah, well, he deserved it. On the way he handled that particular episode, it was very sensitive, but he took on, especially not being a Brazilian, he took them on. I know the language is the same, and I'm sure he'd done it all in Portuguese before he spoke to us in English, but I was really impressed. So
right, your player.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably old enough to be the old player, Ivan Perišić, who played for PSV in the win at Anfield, and the penalty I've described in the letter, he took with great aplomb. he often played on the left defensively for Spurs in his 2 years with Spurs, but now he's up on the left of a three behind one. And so that was where he really made his name.
Yeah.
And what a career he's had.
Oh.
I mean, he is one that is, again, he's blessed with a terrific physique, but also amazing technique as well. I mean, England obviously suffered in that 2018 World Cup semi-final from his skills, but he seems to be around forever.
Yeah.
And I think the story goes that he went into football because there was a family farm that he needed to support. It wasn't doing too well, so I'll go off and play a few games of football, and that was 20 years ago, and here he is still performing in the Champions League.
Played in the World Cup final, of course.
Having beaten England in the semi. Absolutely the perfect example. We're talking about Billy Bonds and fitness and physique. I mean, Ivan's got that as well, and his skill with the ball is still. He crosses a terrific ball, and he gets goals himself. I mean, he's played hundreds of games for Croatia.
Oh, yeah. And he won Serie A playing left wing back for.
Yeah, well, I think Spurs used him a bit like that as well, didn't they? But. And it was great. I remember when it happened, I thought, we're going to have him for a year or so. I think it was 2 seasons he played. And he certainly, he didn't let himself down, and he's still going. And definitely, I had to pick somebody from that game, and he was an easy choice, really, because of the pedigree he brings to it. It wasn't just one game. It's lauding a career, really. Long may he continue.
Well, excuse me, but I'm going with the Chelsea player this week. Marc Cucurella. I am one of the people who thought, oh my God, why are Chelsea signing Marc Cucurella for £60 million when you got Ben Chilwell?
Because you can.
And I was one of the people who in his first season thought, oh God, he's not good enough. He's too short. I love his hair, but he's not good enough. Of course, what we didn't know, he on his interviews said how different the pressure was at Chelsea because you had to win every game as opposed to Brighton, where it wasn't expected. But what we didn't know was he and his wife were dealing with the issues around their firstborn and discovering at the age of 1.5 to 2.5 that he had quite extreme autism. And it was a very difficult time for them. And in his second season, he wasn't that much better, I'm afraid, until suddenly, in the second half of the season, he got an injury. He got a bad injury, and he needed a bit of surgery. And something happened in the hospital that made me fall in love with his wife. Which was he put out a social media, or that she did for him, of him thumbs up with a statement saying the surgery.
Were these feelings reciprocated?
Which meant that surgery had gone well, and he was watching the Chelsea game on his phone or whatever, and then he fell asleep. And she took a photograph of him falling asleep and posted it up afterwards, as if to say, well, that's how much you're enjoying this game, which I thought was the kind of humour that football needs.
Yeah, I mean, without involving his good lady, I can give you a confirmation of what you said, because Jesus Perez, who was the assistant to Pochettino at the time, and is always his assistant, he told me, and I'm sure he won't mind me sharing it with you all, that period when he was out of the game reinforced his belief that he's got to get back right to the top. He wasn't going to let it just slide away with injury problems. He knew he hadn't been playing up to potential. So yeah, it was a real moment for him that has translated into consistent performances.
He got his fitness. And there was a game at Aston Villa where Chelsea were 2-0 down, and the tactics, and he was at fault for one of the goals, and the tactics changed, and it was the first time Chelsea used the inverted fullback, and it was him. And this is under Pochettino still, before Enzo Maresca came, and he was magnificent. He just took to it immediately.
Why is it inverted? Because inverted is a left footer playing on the right. That's inverted.
Well,
going from left back to midfield is not inverted.
No, it's because
well, it's not.
No, it's
we're
just
wordsmiths. We should come up with another
it's because
word for it.
I agree. Because you're going infield.
Yeah.
And I keep saying the opposite of inverted is exverted. I don't quite know what that means.
No.
But anyway.
He's certainly not introverted, that's for sure.
But since then, he's just gone from strength to strength.
Yeah.
And of course, he's won the Euros and he made the winning goal.
And he played brilliantly in that final.
Yeah. And he's just been absolutely wonderful. And he was up against Lamine Yamal, the first time I'd seen Yamal in the flesh. And Yamal was actually... Yamal got a bad press for that game because Barcelona lost, but he wasn't hopeless. He wasn't hopeless.
Do you think
had
that
great...
it was a Spaniard against a Spaniard?
Yeah,
I'm sure that had advantage for Cucurella.
And also their teammates, of course, in the national.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They have trained together, weren't they?
But Cucurella was really physical with him, which is difficult when you're about 3'7".
He's physical.
I've seen, he was all over him.
He was all over Bukayo Saka in the final, and I had where I was sitting watching the game. I had a fantastic view of that particular duel. I was in that half, particularly in the second half. Excellent. And he is beloved by commentators. You cannot mistake him from anybody else. So.
And the other thing about him is, in that first 18 months at Chelsea, it was like he didn't smell danger as a defender, and he made mistakes. Now his reading of the game is world class. It's absolutely world class. And everything about him has changed, apart from the fact that everyone says he's the funniest geezer in the club. And just for that performance, he won the UEFA Man of the Match for the performance, even though Estêvão gave us all the wow moment. And I understand why he won it. I'd have given it to Estêvão, but I understand why he won it. And he's up there for the Player of the Year at Chelsea.
That's great that they did that. Left backs don't get any awards, you know, and I think
you do when you keep the best young player in the world silently.
Yeah, but even so, it's against the norm of giving it to the glory seekers up front. Like me.
But you need to
but
play.
I didn't get much glory. But
right, that is 3 of the best, and we're going to have a very quick final segment of feedback. One of the things that our wonderful producers do, wonderful even though they're 2 Manchester United and 1 Arsenal supporter, that they do is put up shorts out of the podcast. And they put up a short of me ranting on recently about the fact that I think Wilf Zaha is Crystal Palace's best ever player. And the Palace supporters have responded to this.
They piled in, have they?
They have piled in.
Yeah.
So Stian, Danielson, Zaha, Glasner, Eze in that order. Obviously not players, but important people.
Influential people. Yeah.
Work by Tomac said, Wilf is our greatest player of all time. Eze gave us the greatest moment in our history, and Elise is the best footballer to ever put on a shirt. That's my assessment. And I like that. Greatest player, but it's different from best footballer. Jacko Paul, Zaha greatest, Elise most technically gifted, Wright and Eze gave us memorable moments. Martin Davis says Vince Hilaire.
Mm-hmm. From the team of the 80s that didn't quite develop. That was the exciting time. And Vince was a good player.
Yeah. Played for England.
No,
didn't he?
No, I don't think so. I'd be surprised. Under 21s or under 23s. Michael's looking it up.
One person has come up with Julian Speroni, the goalkeeper.
Who's now the goalkeeping coach, I think. Well, he certainly kept Palace alive. I did the commentary on the Palace Manchester United game with Joel Wood, the man who jointly held up the FA Cup and had been there a long time. And he was, he had a very balanced view about it. It did come up who was the best player.
And he thought?
Well, Joel is one who, I don't want to put words in his mouth because we didn't really finish the conversation, but all those you mentioned came into the conversation. Yeah.
Well, Alonso says Don Rogers, going back to this.
What he did say about Speroni was that they'd had some real battles against relegation. 13th consecutive season in the Premier League, and they've never felt more comfortable really than in the Glasner time. And so those back to the Wall seasons where they stayed up sometimes right at the end of the season, Speroni played a big part in that. That's what triggered what.
England Youth and England B.
Yeah.
England Youth and England B, Billy. Thank you.
Vinny, yeah.
Phony Gabriel says Zaha doesn't get the respect he deserves. He's such a leader for his team. Waldo says Sansom, Clive Allen, Ian Wright, Vince Hilaire, and John Burridge.
Budgie. Wow.
I don't remember
he
him playing
featured
for
in the
Palace.
Letter the other week, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because the game was called off when he was going to keep going.
John Jackson, I remember
John
in
Jackson
the
was a fine
60s and
goalkeeper.
70s.
Yeah.
Martin Power, another one for Don Rogers. Mike, absolutely undeniably, Zaha, Wright, and Andy Gray.
Yeah, Andy Gray came from Corinthian Casuals.
Did he?
Yeah.
I saw him get sent off.
Along with Alan Pardew.
I saw him get
both
sent off in his
Corinthian
second
Casuals.
game, Andy
Yeah.
Gray, with
Yeah.
Dennis Wise in the
Yeah.
punch-up at Selhurst Park.
Yeah. No, it was a big connection between, obviously, South London-ish. Andy Gray played for England. Played once.
Yeah,
He
did.
played for England.
Yeah. Not the Andy Gray that you
No.
commentated with.
There have been a few Andy Grays
but
in the family that has produced Harry Gray and Archie Gray and Eddie Gray and Frankie Gray and all those. So yeah, there was an Andy in there.
Palace have had a lot of very good players.
Don Rogers is interesting because this is where sometimes you think, how far can you go back? This was before I started commentating, but I was watching a lot of football television. I was a football journalist then, and Don Rogers inspired a 5-0 win for Crystal Palace against Manchester United. And he'd come obviously at Swindon. He was like they won the League Cup as a third division team, and he was the pin-up poster boy on that. So he'd been around quite a long time before he went to Palace, but he didn't disappoint. He's another one who was on the fringe, I think, of England, but never played. It was pretty hard to get in those days. You didn't have squads of 26.
No, and you didn't have 15, 16 games a year, right?
No, you didn't. So.
Yeah. Oh well, nice one, everybody. Thank you for that. I think
JP Mateta will be coming into that list if he keeps going like he does. But he's a wonderful mixture of physicality and finesse.
And Munoz.
Yes, yeah. I've done Palace twice, and both on the Sundays after they played on the Thursday. In both occasions, they've gone in front and lost 2-1 at Everton and at home to Manchester United. And talking to the United players afterwards, they all said that at half-time we felt they were going to tire, and we almost sort of upped our game to force that tiredness. And they won pulling away Manchester United, but Palace, they're doing great. And South London, I lived in South London for a long time. South London deserves proper Premier League recognition.
Right. That is it for this week. Thanks for listening, watching, and we'll be back next week. And we might be doing it on Zoom. Why? You have to tune in to find out. From Martin and me.
Goodbye.
That's right. So there we have it. And we're doing it in the evening. We normally do it in the middle of the day or the morning. We're doing it in the evening because Martin's been to this podcast.
Yes, up in the northwest of England, where I've been interviewed by Jamie Carragher. The last time that happened, he was 18 and I was an aspiring commentator, and he asked questions more about me when I was supposed to ask questions about him. He was going to play in the FA Youth Cup final for Liverpool against West Ham, which he did. And he was so interested in life generally. What was I doing there? Why was it? You can imagine Jamie, sort of, even at 18, he's very boyish now, isn't he? So it was great fun to do, and it's available on
all major platforms, like The Joy of Football.